Morning. Welcome to the August 8th meeting of the Citizen Oversight Board. We are joined today by Sheriff Elias Diggins. Thank you for joining us, Sheriff. Before we get started with our guest, we'll work through a couple of announcements. So first, and it feels like I just keep saying this, the board has two vacancies, one which will be a mayoral appointment. I'll say it out loud to the internet, but that has been open for 18 months. And so we encourage people to apply through the mayor's office. And then one, it will be filled by council. That one's only been open for a couple weeks. So two separate forms for those. So no reason you can't submit applications with both. And you don't need to know council members or the mayor in order to get appointed. You just have to submit the forms. Okay. Next, on Monday of last week, the Denver Police Department posted a draft copy of their education-based development policy on their website. They'll be accepting public comment on it until August 27th. On Wednesday of this week, the board published our official public comment on that draft, highlighting the serious flaws that we've identified in the policy. We have provided feedback at a detailed level to DPD directly, and it's worth just saying out loud that we disagree with the policy on its face and don't agree that it should move forward at all. And so we have also provided some critiques about why. We encourage the public to read that policy. If you need help in understanding what the implications are, read our public comment, and then you're, of course, welcome to submit your own public comment to that as well. We can also highlight the fact that the published policy references but does not include an appendix that specifies which policies in the disciplinary matrix policy violations would be eligible for education instead of discipline, and what kinds of training each policy would be eligible for. That was provided to the board in a previous conversation, but has not been provided to the public. One of the challenges with the policy in the first place is that it's very unclear what would qualify and what wouldn't. But we assume that about 85% of officer conduct matters would go through education-based development versus disciplinary processes, which is a very significant change to our current state. Chief Thomas is scheduled to present the policy to City Council at 9:30 a.m. on August 19th. And then will be joining us for his regularly scheduled quarterly meeting August 22nd. So again, we encourage the public to join, and we always try and take public comments. So if you've got ideas to share there, we are welcome to those. Let's see. Also on Wednesday of this week, this past Wednesday, City Council's Health and Safety Committee advanced an ordinance change that would require additional transparency around legal settlements related to public safety departments that contain non-monetary terms, such as requirements for specific policy changes, trainings, or reports. We, as a board, and in particular Daniel, sort of catalyzed the need to move on this matter because there were a few problems. One, there was really bad record keeping as to what those non-monetary terms were. No one had accountability for ensuring that they were accomplished. And there was no transparency to the public in terms of sort of like when a specific incident of harm happened, how systemic that was and what the changes were recommended to be. And so this bill provides additional transparency, tracking, and accountability, which we feel great about. That's our purpose. And so nice job, Daniel, for identifying the idea in 2023. And good job, board, in terms of moving that forward into policy changes that will create a clear path for systems level change related to individual incidents. Let's see. Okay, there is a surveillance task force which was catalyzed based on the city's use of flock flock systems, which are cameras that read license plate readers. The original intention, or what we were told, was that they were intended to support a reduction in vehicle theft in Denver. What turns out is that they were deployed without good data management policies, and information on folks driving in Denver were shared as part of a national surveillance database, including with federal authorities. In Colorado, it is actually illegal for local authorities to share information with federal authorities. And so when the contract renewal came up in front of City Council, this became more of an issue. The mayor has determined that they will continue the contract as it sits under a threshold, and it's sort of a continuation of an existing contract versus a new contract. So there's a little bit of using procurement to your advantage here. There is a very large task force. I think there are 65 members, and somewhere along the lines of that many organizations who have formed to sort of oppose the use of flock, and also improve the data sharing and retention policies. Um, uh, um, and that group, in light of the sort of continuation of the use of flock, has drafted a letter that they're looking for organizations to sign on to. So I will provide that letter to the COB, and you all can let me know if you feel like it's appropriate for us to sign on to that, and if we agree with what the content is. And I think the draft is in my email, so I will forward that today. Okay, and with that, may I have approval of the minutes for our July 11th meeting? Need a motion.
July 25th.
Oh, it says July 11th in my notes. July 25th.
Motion to approve.
Thanks. Whatever they are, can we approve them?
Second.
Okay, great. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Great. Sheriff, I think we'll turn the conversation over to you. We provided some questions in advance, and so, as always, if you wouldn't mind reading the question, and then we will be interested to hear your answer, and we'll have a discussion with you about them.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, board. Always great to see you all. Before I begin, allow me the privilege of giving kudos to the men and women of the Denver Sheriff's Department, who are heroes, show up every day, 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year to serve the citizens of the city and county of Denver. So I want to make sure I acknowledge the good work that's being done by all the people in our department. First question is, during our May community forum, you expressed a willingness to explore conducting mediations between deputies and inmates who file complaints against them. What do you see as the primary barriers to moving forward with a mediation program? And what are the next steps that need to be taken? I generally prefer to look not through a lens of barriers, but rather can or can they not be accomplished. I would like to work with the 5 employee groups who represent the members of the Denver Sheriff's Department to gauge their interest and support for this idea. Generally speaking, from the standpoint of reducing the process of the deputy or an employee going through an internal investigation, this may be an alternative that we can consider on a case-by-case basis. I will pose this to the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 27, the Denver Sheriff Teamsters, the Latin American Law Enforcement Association, the Black Sheriff's Protective Association, and the Denver Sheriff Latino Organization Leadership Group to see what they think about it. And based on their response, we can decide next steps. And I'll pause there for questions.
Do you have a thought in terms of timeline? Or, I mean, I know engaging with a large number of stakeholder groups can take some time, but, you know, any,
Each of those groups is on my calendar quarterly, so I'll talk to them during their quarterly meetings, and we'll move forward following those.
thanks.
Okay, I'll move on to question 2. The Denver Sheriff's Department recently announced that personal mail to people in custody now needs to be sent to a third-party contractor in Florida. Could you please share more about that decision with us and the community? The introduction of contraband into our facilities has been a concern that I've previously publicly expressed significant concern for, including in this forum. In jails and prisons across the nation, we've seen in recent years a purposeful and sizable increase in narcotics being mailed into our facilities. As we continue to combat this surge and scourge, one of the levers we have moved is going to an electronic mail system. This process is being replicated more and more in jails from border to border and coast to coast. This will increase safety for our staff, the people in our custody, and the community. And I'll stand for questions.
I have one serious question and then one sort of dumb question, but what was the process for selecting a vendor in Florida? Are there any vendors in the Mountain West? Or, you know, it seems like a long way to mail. And does it like get sent as a pallet or something, or just each individual letter is forwarded?
Good question, Madam Chair. It's actually being done through our phone and video visitation vendor Securus.
Okay.
That's the way that most agencies that are large like us do it. It's mailed as individual letters. So if you have someone who's in our custody, you would send that letter directly to the address in Florida.
Okay. They send it directly to Florida. They don't send it to you and then it gets forwarded.
That's correct.
Okay. And then what do they do with all the letters filled with drugs?
If there is a letter that's filled with drugs, it would be confiscated, perhaps investigated, and maybe destroyed or something along those lines.
Okay. And I guess, you know, the sillier version of that question is sometimes it might have drugs and it might be a really useful document for the inmate. And so how does that sort of work?
Unfortunately, if someone mails in drugs with the letter will not be shared with that person.
Okay. Thanks. Any
I
other
have a
questions on
question.
that? Go ahead, Devin.
Buenos dias, Sheriff. I think my immediate mind goes to, like, I understand that the intention is to limit the amount of drugs that are entering the facility, but I'm a little worried around how dehumanization can be like utilized this, especially as like a lot of inmates. I feel like these pieces can be really helpful to like reduce recidivism rates, to have like this sense of like hope and this connection with family. And so I'm just kind of want to hear your thoughts around like how dehumanizing you think that this practice can be for the folks in your facility.
David, I appreciate the question. One of the things that I and our department takes into serious consideration how we ensure that folks in our custody realize that we see them as people, and everything that we do has intention through that lens. We know that contact with family helps to reduce recidivism with loved ones, and so we want to continue to provide the material that the person sent to them, and so they still have access to the letters on tablets. So it's not as if they're not going to be able to see the letter, the whatever the person wrote to them. It's the physical copy of that, unfortunately, sometimes has narcotics on it, and that's the risk that we've seen in jails and prisons across America. And it's grown over the past couple of years to a level that I never thought would be possible. So we have to balance that sense that folks want to have connection to their family member through these letters, with also institutional risk.
And then a follow-up question: if drugs still continue to enter the facility at high rates, do you see like this policy shifting in the future, or thoughts on that?
We anticipate that this is going to help us. It's not the only thing that we're doing. There are other things that we've put into place to combat this problem. I anticipate that perhaps years from now, this may be a policy that may be revisited. For the time being, it's something that we're going to keep into place along with the other measures that we have. As you and other folks on this call know, the introduction of fentanyl across the nation has taken a lot of lives. And unfortunately, addiction doesn't stop when someone comes into custody. And people have become very creative about how they want to get narcotics into our facilities. We know for a fact that it's coming in through the mail. And so, if perhaps in the future things change from the standpoint of fentanyl not being a problem in the community, then we would likely revisit. But that's likely years from now.
Appreciate it.
Sheriff, I have a question regarding the different processes around mail. During my first COB meeting, we got a tour of the jail, and I remember y'all mentioning that the all mail was being screened and digitized and sent to tablets. Is this the same process? Is this something separate or additional on top of that? How does this fit into that digitization process that y'all were implementing?
Yeah, you may have remembered us first talking about the process that we're talking about today. So this actually went into effect on July 21st.
Gotcha.
And we've been working for a while to try to put this into place.
Oh, okay. Understood. Thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome. Okay. Seeing no additional questions, I'll move on to question 3.
Well, really quickly, I do want to
Sure.
flag a question that was asked through the public comment by Mateo Mayorga. Are all the drugs in prison being mailed in?
Very good question. The answer is no. We have a number of ways that contraband may come through, and for each of those ways, we have a different strategy about how we attempt to ensure that they don't come in and to combat them as well.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks for catching that, Alfredo. Go ahead, Sheriff.
Okay. Question 3. Another death in custody was reported last Friday. It feels like we are significantly above what the usual rate of deaths has been. So question 8, how many in custody deaths have there been in 2025 so far? There have been 7 thus far in 2025. Sub question B, how many in custody deaths have there been in each year since 2015? In 2015, there were 4. 2016, there were 2. 2017, there were 2. 2018, there were 2. 2019, there were 4. 2020, there were 3. 2021, there were 10. 2022, there were 3. 2023, there were 5. 2024, there were 6. And 2025, there have been 7.
Are the 2021 deaths related to COVID? Or is that, that's a much higher number than, I mean, it's not much higher than 7, but it's a significant jump from the previous year, which was obviously deep COVID, but.
Well, a few of them were medically related.
Okay.
The higher number during that year was by suicide.
Okay.
Right.
And so we're already at 7. We're halfway through the year. Yeah, can you give your reflections a little bit on that?
Sure. The Denver Sheriff's Department, to include our deputies, along with our medical provider, Denver Health, does everything that we can to try to save lives. Every day, We have folks that are coming through our custody. In fact, in a year, we booked 23,000 people through our system. The deaths that we are seeing are of significant concern to us. We're doing everything that we can to ensure that we save lives and return people back to the community better than how they came to us. A number of deaths that have occurred this year, we're still waiting on autopsies for. Generally speaking, what I can tell you is that, as I spoke of before, the addiction that folks have doesn't stop when they come into our custody. In fact, I've seen people in our custody whose bodies are ravaged by their addiction from the street. When they come to us, sometimes, unfortunately, they're in brittle health. Denver Health does everything they can to help them to get better. Our deputies perform life-saving measures when they find someone who may be in crisis, and we're going to continue to do that through the rest of this year. I'll move on to the rest of the subset of the questions, if you don't mind, Madam Chair, and then we can pause for questions. Subset question C, looking at in-custody deaths over the past decade, what are the main causes of death? The main causes of death are suicide, overdose, and medical conditions. Thus far this year, we have not had a death that was, the matter of death was deemed a suicide. But in previous years, that was the case. Overdose would follow the number of suicides, and then medical conditions as well, deaths from natural causes. Subset question D, during the May Community Forum, community members expressed a desire to know the names of individuals who die while in DSD custody. The Office of the Medical Examiner is responsible for the initial release of those names, but are you able to share those names publicly following the OME's release? I'm not responsible for the notification of next of kin, as has been stated. That's the medical examiner. But out of respect for the decedent and their family, we don't want to create a list or share the names publicly of people that have died in our custody. Subset question E, does the Denver Sheriff's Department use real-time biometric wearable devices to monitor people in custody who are at high risk of medical incidents, such as those going through withdrawal? If not, have you already explored that possibility? We have not. And many of you know that I'm involved in national conversations about emerging technologies in corrections. In fact, the American Correctional Association Congress of Correction is going to be here in Denver from August 21st through August 26th. This is where all the folks that work in our field, including partners that have technology like this, come to share it, have it vetted, and perhaps have people try it out. In my opinion, the devices have not been in place long enough to be vetted, tested, and proofed to the level that we will be comfortable in having people in our custody wear them. We believe our current practices of doing rounds by deputy sheriffs and monitoring by medical staff in compliance with national best practices helps to save lives every day. Down the line, should those medical devices become things that are proven technologies, it is something that I'm sure our department would likely explore. Madam Chair, I'll pause there for that set of questions.
I've got a couple of questions for you, and I'm sure other board members do. I recently learned that you can die from alcohol withdrawal as well. That was news to me. I think I've always anchored on, drug withdrawal and the need to sort of come down from that addiction. Do you treat that with MAT, and are there separate protocols for folks with different kinds of addictions, or can you sort of speak to that?
Absolutely. Great question, Madam Chair. We do treat for alcohol withdrawal. And oftentimes there are people in our custody that have co-occurring disorders, meaning they may have an addiction to alcohol, an addiction to an opiate, an addiction to fentanyl, along with a mental health condition. So it's very complicated. For each of those folks, Denver Health does a great job in figuring out a formulary to help them. Withdrawal is something that is very, very hard on the body. When I was a young deputy 31 years ago, we would place someone in a cell and give them a blanket and have them go cold turkey. And it was hard to watch. Today, we know better. We know that we've got to help people to taper from that addiction and get them stabilized before they go back to the community. So Denver Health does an individualized plan for every single person that comes into our custody and can provide them MAT medications, Gatorade to keep them hydrated, observation, touching base with them to see how they're doing. There's actually a sheet that the nurses utilize to check on about a dozen separate symptoms that someone progresses through while they go through withdrawal. And they ask them, are you suffering from this? Are you suffering from this at this moment? And it's quite interesting to actually see. At the beginning, when folks first come into our custody, they don't have the symptoms, but as they progress, they begin to tell Denver Health, yes, I do. Or they may tell the deputy, I do. And the deputy will contact Denver Health. And then they begin to treat those folks along the way. And again, I'll just state, there are 23,000 people that come through our custody every single year. We book hundreds of people during the day. And we do everything that we can, including for folks that have conditions that are going through withdrawal, to stabilize them and to save them.
My next question was, you were providing some information about the cause of death, in aggregate across time. I wonder if you have that by year and if that's information you could provide to the board. It's been a while since I've looked at your dashboard, but, is that information that you publish publicly? Not obviously the names, you've just discussed that, but, numbers, reasons, et cetera, to really understand trends.
We do not have that, Madam Chair, as a part of our dashboards. That is information that is actually kept by Denver Health, and I'm able to ask them and can review that information. It is information that I can pass on to the board.
Thank you. Other board members, questions on this topic?
Okay. Question number 4. The current operating agreement with Denver Health updated language around the Denver Sheriff Department's access to medical records for people in custody. You didn't anticipate any issues when that language went into effect. Now that we are more than halfway through the year, have there been issues related to your access to medical records? Though there have been no issues with my access to medical records, and each time that I've needed to review them, they've been made readily available to me without hesitation. Following my review, I do sign off because of HIPAA and Denver Health's agreement with us to say that I actually have access to that record. Whenever I go upstairs or to the county jail or wherever I need to look at a record, as soon as I go into the room, it's given to me and I'm able to review it. I'll stand for questions, man.
Hey, Sheriff, good morning. Just a question. Can you give us an idea of how often you need to access those records?
Not very often, Larry. Generally, for the past 7 times that someone, in fact, every single time that someone passes away in our custody, one of the first things that I do after I go and check on our staff check on the folks that are in custody and do the other things that I do is I go to the medical unit and I review that person's chart. So that has been the case. If there are other instances where something perhaps has been shared with me that I need to take a look at, perhaps from a member in the community about a concern that they may have, I may go up there and take a look at it.
Okay, other questions for the sheriff? I have one. As you know, the police department is exploring policy around education-based discipline. Is the sheriff's office entertaining that idea in any way?
We are waiting to see what happens with evidence-based discipline. As you all know, I'm a fan of Chief Ron Thomas as a law enforcement leader. I think he's one of the best CEOs of a public safety agency in the nation. I've had a number of conversations with him about his why for evidence-based discipline. So we're going to wait to see how things happen before we move forward.
Good answer. Okay. Other questions from the board?
I would just in a follow up to that, Sheriff Diggins, just and you're probably aware of this, but just also bring some light to the distrust that has created with the community. So I would just caution that this is something that has really led to a lot of community not really being happy and feeling that the police department is trying to push away oversight. So I think that's something to really think about in terms of community involvement and just kind of having ducks in a row in terms of the effects of, other police departments that have used it around the nation and the success or lack thereof. I think that could be something that can also put the sheriff's department in a negative light with the community as well, because a lot of community is in an uproar about it right now.
Thank you for that, Larry. I know how important the community is, not just to us, but also to Chief Thomas and all of the members of the Denver Police Department. So when the time comes, we certainly will take that into consideration.
It goes without saying that if there are concerns you have on the disciplinary process or process improvements you might suggest, we are open to a conversation about improving that rather than reinventing it. Okay, if board members do not have additional questions for the sheriff, we can let you have your morning and move on to other board business. Any last questions? Any questions in the chat? No, I think we're okay. All right, Sheriff.
Madam Chair, I would welcome the board's attendance at the 155th Congress of Correction, August 21st to the 26th. You can go to the American Correctional Association website to review the program book. It's a 177-page program book. It's going to be fantastic. Over 4,000 people, we're hoping 5,000, from 32 different countries will be at our convention center to talk about the good work that's being done to move corrections in a more humane approach to the work that we do. So just want to open that up to you. But thank you all. Hope you all have a good Friday.
That's great.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Maybe there'll be some highlight of alligator Alcatraz in the conversation. Not everyone is moving towards humanity. It could be said. Okay, it's actually not at all funny.
Not responsible for everybody, ma'am. Okay.
See you later.
Thank you.
Okay, it doesn't seem like we have additional board business. I will say that we can open up for public comment if any attendees would like to make a comment. And then Daniel, remind me how they do that. Can they raise their hand?
Correct. They can either raise their hand as attendee or submit a note through the Q&A function.
Thank you. Okay, we'll leave that open for a little bit. And Monitor Castle, might you have anything to present in the public forum?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you. Some of the things that were on my list, I think, have already been covered. Certainly the deaths in the jail is something that the OIM is keeping close eye on and in tracking. And we will, review those instances and what the circumstances are, and consider any kind of reporting that may be necessary in the future. With regards to education-based discipline, I just have an additional few comments. When we talk about education-based discipline, it's now called education-based development. And but it is modeled on a system called education-based discipline. So it doesn't change the model, it just changes really the name. The EBD model was created and implemented 17 years ago. So it started in Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department in approximately 2008. To date, there is no best practice research to support the argument that it improves officer accountability or outcomes for community members and is more effective than the traditional current discipline system, or that it leads to different results. The current system of discipline already allows for additional training. So in addition to accountability, there is embedded within the current discipline system additional training to address exactly that the department is saying is necessary and a better method of addressing deficiencies within the department. So if they choose not to use it, that is not a reason then to disregard accountability and the harm that has been created to the community. And that's important because that harm is not just about one single person. Yes, it might affect the person who filed the complaint, but it is an impact on the community. And there are communities, obviously, that we know are more substantially impacted or harmed by law enforcement than other communities. So it's not a one-off. It's not, well, this person should accept that there will be redirected training. There is a societal impact. There is a historical impact that is at risk here. It will impact oversight by reducing current levels of review by the OIM. The draft as proposed seems to indicate there'll be some sort of limited investigations, whereas right now what is required is the OIM must certify that the investigation that is done into the allegation is thorough and complete. And we review every single complaint filed against the department, regardless of whether it comes in through the OIM, the Department of Safety, or the COB. And I am concerned that that's what's going to be cut out. And if you cut out a thorough and complete investigation, then you cut out oversight, which is why I'm concerned that the significant impact that this is going to have on our office and on oversight. It will impact community as a whole, as I believe community members will cease from filing complaints as there will be no accountability. This reduction in complaints will then be used by the department as a model, as evidence of success that EBD as complaints have dropped. Why file a complaint if there will be no accountability, and the community will lose trust in the system that has been established and that has been in place since 2008. And frankly, will just cease to file complaints. And my concern is that then will be used to say, look how great this program is because we have less complaints. More complaints means the system is working. It is more robust. Less complaints is under, this potential actually eliminates the ability for community to feel safe. It'll also lead to a discretionary system, which was one of the original reasons for the matrix system, the discipline system that we currently have. As the system, it was the past before the current system, the manner of discipline was discretionary, overbroad, overused, and data from civilian organizations that have reviewed education-based discipline say exactly the same thing. We are going to go back to what we had in before 2008, the adoption of the matrix, where there are no clear rules as to who's going to get disciplined, to what degree, who gets EBD, who doesn't get EBD, and it is as stated in these other states, it is overbroad and will be overused. This is something that is going to impact law enforcement as well. This is not just the community at large. This is an impact that's going to be felt by the officers as well. And it was the whole reason why one of the main reasons that the discipline system, the matrix system, was adopted in 2008 was because of discretionary discipline. Recently, I appeared before Brother Jeff. It's like he's a judge. Recently, I appeared on the Brother Jeff podcast where we had an opportunity to discuss our concerns about EBD with community. There were some community questions and the need for ongoing community engagement in the continued conversation regarding education-based discipline. So as we move forward in this process with community, engaging both with stakeholders and the COB and the police department, I am interested in seeing where the community weighs in on this. And they're the ones who are impacted. I am the head of the oversight agency, and I can talk about how it impacts oversight. It is the community that's going to feel the consequences of this unproven, untried system. Thank you.
Thanks. And just something that came to my mind as you were talking, perhaps it's important for the community to understand that the way the process flows now, there's a full investigation and then a category is assigned based on that investigation. A category of discipline. Is it like this? Really bad? Is it like this? Not so bad? And sort of what is the descriptor of that in accordance with the matrix? Often the department and your office do not agree on what that assignment is, or may have some back and forth on, well, you said it was very severe. We see it as not severe, but like, here are the factors that might kind of change your thinking. But with EBD, there's no investigation, and therefore there's no real assignment. There's no typical process that assigns then the value in the matrix. Is that fair to sort of be a description?
I think that's a good question. I think that is something that needs to be fleshed out.
Okay. So like when the department says only things A through C would be assigned, the process that typically is used to assign the A through C isn't even going to be part of the process. And so for us, at least, that's a key element of concern, which is who decides what the level is, because the process won't exist anymore. And then you've got folks who are not typically trained to do that assignment, making the assignment. And gosh, it's much easier on your job if you assign it an A through C and you just roll somebody into a training than it is having to go through the rigmarole of actual accountability and discipline, right? So the incentives are not well aligned with the outcomes here, or perhaps they are well aligned with the outcomes depending on what you want to happen out of this process. But we're sort of missing the key step, which is everyone has a conversation about how bad the behavior is, and then it's assigned a value and then a process that falls out. And so we're sort of missing that. Okay. Any board member commentary, questions for the monitor? Go ahead, Alfredo.
Well, first of all, Monitor Perez Castle, thank you for your statement and for clarifying some of that background around how long EBD has been around and how little adoption there has been to speak to its merits. So thank you for that. In lieu of a complete overhaul of discipline, what would make oversight and discipline more effective, more efficient? If we could improve upon the system that exists currently, where should the emphasis be instead?
I don't know about the emphasis, but that's a good question, and it is significantly trying to explain to a civilian who's not involved in the process what the process looks like and what the steps are. It does appear very complicated. However, it works, and it's been working since 2008. The issue that my understanding from the chief is the biggest issue is the amount of time that it takes. And I think certainly we can put our heads together to find a way where can we speed up this process. I would note that the department has a multi-million-dollar budget and has thousands of staff and officers in their organization, and we are a very, very small agency. Is there a way to either take some of those resources from the department and use them to speed up the process on their side? Is there an opportunity to further fund the OIM so that we may have additional staffing so that we can assist in speeding up those numbers? Is there a more are there more people that can be involved in the process to make it quicker? These are all different ideas and conversations that I am willing to have, would love to have, but we were never approached about this. It was never brought to my attention, this is taking too long. What can we do with oversight to make this process move forward quicker? And I want to identify that when I say quicker, we are a check and balance to the discipline system. That is our function, and that takes time. So the fact that that process takes time means that it is thorough, and that is what that is the faith that the community is putting on us to make sure that these investigations are thorough, that they are unbiased, and that their complaint is being treated seriously, and that takes time. So it is not necessarily a bad thing that this process takes time. Could it be quicker? Happy to have that conversation, but we were never asked to join in that brainstorming.
Thank you for that. That's incredibly important. to share and put out there to the community, and for us to continue building on these conversations around, if not a complete overhaul that takes away transparency, that takes away accountability, how can we all come together to improve upon the system as it exists and make it better for everybody? Thank you for that.
Yeah, and I might even clarify by saying, I'm not sure this is an overhaul of the system. It's an end around. Like we never tried to overhaul the system. We haven't even, taken one step to identify process improvements or done any analysis of where the longest periods of waiting are, or, sort of getting the facts on if this process is too long, why, and how might we address that, rather than just like imagining something else to solve that problem. So,
and if I may, why education-based discipline? There's no data to support this. If there's going to be, if we're going to experiment, then let's experiment with something that is proven to work.
That's a great point. Okay, board members, other questions, comments? Monitor Castle, might you have items to cover in executive session that are matters of ongoing investigation or deliberative privilege?
Yes.
Okay, before we proceed there, I will just direct the community to the resources that we have made available on our website. Daniel, yes, on our website? Okay, great. So if you Google City of Denver Citizen Oversight Board, you will find our content. A few things that are there are our high-level analysis of the policy for education-based discipline, education-based development, that the community could use to facilitate their own comments and questions about the policy. We also published, the Denver Post published an opinion piece from the board regarding discipline, education-based development, and its potential impact on oversight in general. We encourage folks to get educated there. There are a number of other stakeholder groups, including the Task Force for Reimagining Public Safety, who have sent around some petitions and calls to action. And so there are lots of ways for the community to get engaged on this topic. As we've said in a number of forums, including this week in front of City Council, we think education-based discipline is catastrophic for the monitoring and oversight process and structure that the City of Denver has, which we've long heralded as one of the best in the country. And so, this is not a matter to take lightly. This is something that we're very serious about in terms of its implications. Okay, with that, might I have a motion to adjourn to executive session?
I move to conclude the public session of COB August 8th and move to executive session.
I'll
Great.
second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Great. Well, this concludes our meeting, public meeting today, and we will see folks in executive session. Thanks.
And real quick, Daniel, I don't see the link on my calendar. Will you resend it, please?
Yep.